My best friend is dating my abuser and wants me to reconcile with him, so I kicked her out of my home. Trigger warning. I've tried to write this out for days now, but I keep getting too upset to concentrate, so this might be a bit jumpy. I don't have family in the sense many understand family to be. So I've been pretty much a loner with one exception, my best friend Tammy. We met in middle school and just became joined at the hip. Things changed a bit in college. My parents forced me into a Christian out-of-state college. Tammy applied and got accepted to the other college in the town, so we both went out there and were roommates for 2 of the years before I met my first ever boyfriend. I will call him Trent. I moved in with him the end of junior year, and I don't know when it started happening, but he went from charming and affectionate to controlling. I don't wish to upset anyone, so I will hit the pause button and warn you that below is some of the things he did for me to label him abusive. He would put me down and hint he could find someone better, or that if he cheats, it will be my fault since I wasn't this or that enough. It started to get physical senior year. At first it was him pushing me out of the way if he was walking by and I was in the path for whatever reason. Then he would slap me in arguments, calling me worthless, a waste of his time and young years, a broken toy no one will love. I didn't have any real self-esteem, so I stayed, thinking I was the problem, and when I called home about it, I was told that the problem was me. I started to make my exit plan the day after I graduated. He had proposed, and I hesitated, and he screamed at me to ask why, then her swung and punched the wall right next to my head. I fell to the floor in fear, and he tried to comfort me and basically forced me into sex. When I woke up the next morning, the ring was on my finger, and he forced me again and later called it make-up sex, saying he forgave me for the way I treated him. That is the extremely short explanation, but there are so many stories of him forcing me into bed, hitting me or threatening to kill me, and more. So, I started to make a plan. I found a shelter in the city nearby. I started hiding things in the trunk of my car. I was in the service industry then, and so I would take more shifts whenever I could and hide my cash tips in a box of tampons in my purse. And I finally was ready and left my phone, I had a new cheap one, and never went back. Tammy knew him and lived near us, but she didn't know about my plan. She messaged me on social media and I told her what happened. All of what happened. So she played dumb when he came around asking where I was, spinning the story that I was suicidal and he is calling the police to find me. He never found me. That was years ago. I am now 36, and Tammy is too. Trent is 38. Tammy became a bit religious, but I told her as long as she is happy and safe, I don't care what she leans on in faith. She started to invite me out to her church 4 years ago and I kept saying no until I very firmly said if she brought it up again, I would just walk out or hang up. I'm not against anyone believing what they want, I just don't want or need to be sucked into it. I honestly do not mean any offense to anyone of any faith. I myself am just agnostic, and if that ever will change, I will decide on my own, but I doubt it will. She got a job 2 years ago overseas. I acted excited for her but I was also deeply devastated. Without her, I had no one else. By this time, I wasn't in contact much with family, and I do have surface-level friends, but no one that's known me in the real sense. I worked it out with my counselor and just carried on. We stayed in touch online and video chatted a lot. She would show me London and I would show her my transition to moving to Texas. We would chronicle our explorations of our new cities, and then one day it started to slow down on her end right around the time she went to visit a friend in our old college town. She then asked if she flew to Texas sometime this summer, could she stay with me a few days, and I excitedly agreed. So early this month, just a few weeks ago, she came here. She was off the whole first day, but I figured she was tired. Then the next day, we went out and got drunk. She started to cry and I got us an Uber back to my place and asked her what was wrong. That's when she asked me not to hate her and told me everything. She's with Trent. She's been with him almost a year. I was too stunned to even say anything, and she went on and on about how it's not what I think and he has changed. She told me he found Jesus and turned his life around and deeply regrets the way he treated me. The more she talked, the more I just shut off. I didn't even have it in me to feel anger. I just stared at her frozen as she talked until she said, "Please just say something." So I did. I told her to get the fuck out. She started to explain it all again. She hated him forever, but they kept running into each other. He goes to church and showed he is changed, blah blah blah. I didn't interrupt her, but when she stopped talking again, I just repeated myself. She argued more, and I would just listen and repeat until she grabbed her stuff and left. It was silent between us for a week until my dad texted me that Tammy called my parents crying and told me to get over myself. After all, it's not like I wanted to get back with him, right? And that's what I get for living with a man I wasn't married to. Then she texted the next week rehashing her argument and pretty much demanding I video chat with him to see for myself that he's changed and forgive him. She then blamed me that they can't take the next steps in their relationship because I don't have a forgiving heart and that I was malicious when I kicked her out. I've spent all of this week trying to figure out if I am insane to think this is a huge betrayal. A deal breaker. I mean, who even dates their friend's ex, for one, but this? I blocked her after she hinted that my version of things was exaggerated and malicious, but I don't have other friends to turn to about this. I don't think I am, but and her family thinks I am at least for kicking her out in a strange city alone when she was just being honest with me. Am I? Update. I am stressed that my abusive ex knows where I live and I can't move. It's a lot to get into, but I will link my post here on this link for reference soon. I had my first BF in college. He was actually my first everything, and I was blinded by the thrill of a man loving me and my love for him and didn't realize there were red flags. He would tease me, but they were put downs. Tell me he can find better than me. He called me fat so often that I still struggle with food and developed an eating disorder to please him. He encouraged it. I ate so little. And after a huge meal, I would force myself to vomit it out. Then it got physical. He forced me into sex more times I can count. He would raise his hand like he was about to hit me. Once he was rough during intimacy and choked me so hard I passed out, and then once I was okay, he got angry at me for ruining the moment by passing out. Recently I found out my former best friend has been dating him a year now. She told me while visiting me. It's now stuck in my head that what she knows he could know. And she knows my address. I texted it to her so she could call an Uber here. What if she told him? What if he already knew? I can't move. I just signed a new lease and I live in a high-rent area and my place has amazing rent. I will definitely need to pay more if I move. Also, I made a life here. I don't want to abandon it. I mean, it just feels like he wins if I do. I need advice. I am in Texas. What can I do? I have a Ring camera and the owners have cameras around the house itself. I have a garage and cleaned it today to fit my car. I also own a projectile defense weapon and am trained and documented to have it. I also know self-defense and a martial arts in general. I don't have much in the way of friends here. I tend to kind of float in the ether. I am working to fix that, but right now it's as is.